thank you for being here. We call ourselves by our first name, not because we know each other for very long, but because I really like doing this, starting backstage. And I want to start with the topic as a question. Are podcasts the future of political journalism? You have invited two podcasters, so we'd be kind of stupid to say no to this. Obviously, we see this as the future of political journalism, but to be fair and balanced, I believe there are many great ways of doing political journalism from my own experience as well. But a podcast with the kind of possibilities it offers to really go into depth, you have time, you can find a different way of speaking to them, a different tone. And for me personally, it is the best form right now. And what are you saying, Ulf? She already said the main points. It's definitely a different medium than radio or television. It has great features that make it very special. You have more time, obviously, a lot more than on TV or on the radio. But there's also a very deep connection between the people who create the podcast and the ones who listen to them. And I've been a listener for many podcasts for a long time, and I always have that feeling that I really know these people, and I would love to have a beer with them. And this really helps breaking down and communicate very complicated topics if you already have this emotional connection with the people. And that's why I see the podcast as a great chance for success in the future. Definitely there are other media as well, and it's definitely something you can consume on the side. You can have a very busy day-to-day. You can still listen to podcasts, and a lot of people that have been cut off from political information where the normal formats take up too much time or take too much focus, we regained them as an audience that was lost. You can listen to it while you cook, while you clean your room or whatever. And we made an experiment. We asked our listeners to send us photos of what they're doing while they listen to us. And someone showed us a picture of a horse's head, and from the back you could see the ears. And obviously they were riding. Some people were cooking. Some were lying in bed. So it's really happening in the center of their lives, wherever they are. I didn't send you a picture when I was cooking or cleaning, but I will. So, and you've been doing your podcast since January 2024. You talk about a lot of topics. What is your greatest learning after over a year of doing it? I feel freer than when I started. I feel more secure in my voice and in the way I communicate. For me, it was about what's the kind of tone I have to use. I need to find my voice in that medium. I've done moderation on the radio. I've done newspapers. I've done moderation on TV. I wanted to do something very different. And definitely I wanted to develop this for me, but it doesn't need to be just about myself, but it also needs to work for the medium and for the listeners. So it would be great if it took me a very long time to talk about to think about the name of the podcast, and in the end I ended up at Politics with Anna Dushime. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you already have a brand, why wouldn't the podcast be named after you? But if I may, we do 2 episodes per week, and usually on Tuesday we do an interview with a politician, and on Wednesday we do an episode with a commentator, and we use snippets from the interview on Tuesday as fodder or as a feed for the one on Wednesday, and we also stream the whole interview on the weekend. So we were thinking that 45 minutes would be great, but we usually end up going longer and longer. It took usually an hour, even 2 hours recently with Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. And this was a nice learning for us that it's working. We have a retention rate of 100% sometimes, that people really listen to it end to end for 2 hours. And we often have professors, for example, these are very complex topics that we're talking about, in being presented in a very complex manner, but not in one that loses you. So I noticed from my own listeners that, same for me, just as you said, Ulf, I enjoy long-form podcasts. I don't even start if it's like 20 minutes. What's the point? I really like listening for an hour straight, maybe 90 minutes. But it was interesting for me to see that other people work the same way and that they also enjoy these very long-form podcasts, and that was a very enjoyable learning for me. So I'm going to get to your learnings soon that you've made over the last 10 years off. But one thing that I want to dive into deeper, from the things that you just learned, if you look back at your past, what could other forms of media that you have experienced learn from that? Lovely question. A warm applause for my moderator. I need to show this to my mother. She won't believe it. I'd say what I just said. This tone that you can find yourself, find your own voice, be freer in what you say and how you use your words. Don't use political jargon. This should always have been the case. And I think the really good presenters already have learned these lessons, even in the other forms of media. The only problem they have is that they're really constrained in the time frame that they have. So even if you find it really interesting, you can't just keep going. You have to switch over to the news at 8 o'clock, for example. Obviously, that the program director wouldn't find that very nice or considerate if you overrun. But I think good political journalism always has to be understandable and intelligible. They need to use language that is immediately understandable. You just cannot be as colloquial as you may want to, and that may be allowed in a podcast. And harking back to that, if I listen to your podcast, Ulf, I always have this feeling that I have a very well-researched conversation. It's basically just a discussion between two people, and this makes it very comfortable to listen to you. And I think you do this really well in State of the Nation, as your podcast is called. You have 100 million downloads a month. You're the most successful weekly political podcast. So what's the cause of your success? I want to boil it down to understanding is fun. This is, if you have the feeling that you understood something that you didn't get before and that you saw, maybe that you heard on the radio or that you saw on the TV and you talked to your friends about and you didn't quite get it. And if I have to boil it down to one sentence, this is, we really try hard to make our listeners a little bit smarter every time. We have a discussion that is not as scripted. And now looking at the secrets that you're just asking about, we get into more detail into the way we work. But as a little spoiler ahead of time, every single episode that we do is researched and well prepared. Obviously, there's this, we call it a pad, but it's usually a Google notebook, and it has all the comments that we researched. It's usually not full-form sentences, just little keywords. It's a very rough frame or like a wireframe of what it's going to look like, and we already assign who says what to that. Obviously, there are still going to be spontaneous expositions while we discuss, but roughly we outline who's saying what, and we pass the ball from one to the other. It's not scripted, but usually when you say, okay, I've already talked enough about it, I'm just going to pass the ball to you, and then you can keep talking about your topic. And people really enjoy this, that they're being held by the hand. It doesn't sound nice, it's a little paternalistic, but it helps move along with the discussion. And the second topic, aside from understanding is fun, is maybe have a little faith, try diving deeper. It's very rewarding. You give people the necessary background knowledge in order to understand why is the person saying this, what's the point, is this the result of a long discussion, is that just giving them context about something. You very rarely find information that we just drop onto the listener. We usually try to paint the bigger picture. This is our overarching goal, that if you want to listen to our series, we want to help you understand it, even if you're not a very knowledgeable person or a political connoisseur. It needs to, but on the other hand, we still want to we want to collect all of you. We want to find people that already know about it, and we also want to help everybody understand who is not as well versed. For example, like if the father of the family is listening to it, it should still be accessible to their 15 and 17-year-old daughter, who's maybe not as informed already. And we are definitely not trying to be Gen Z, but it should still not be uncool.
Well, do you script your episodes? I listened to the last episode, and first of all, you're saying something, and then Philip's saying is essentially the same thing. So it is scripted, right? No, that was just badly cut. Well, you're working with a pad. You have a lot on the pad, and yeah, it's a very nice pad. But yeah, I imagined it to be a script that is like written down. We'll come to your production later, but how scripted is your podcast? Is it complete sentences, key points? Yeah, I do write down entire questions because I work with a team. We have 2 editors per episode, and if I don't write it down, I am not giving them any opportunity to really profoundly answering my questions, because I do put a lot of emphasis on staying on the facts. So when we want to develop it together, of course, I have to make my questions clear in the beginning, but I work very differently than Philipp Manz and Ulf, who developed that together, because I don't know what my conversation partner will be saying. If I interview a politician, they can't know what I will ask ahead, and they wouldn't ever ask me. I write down entire questions, and usually it's 4 printed pages that I have lying in front of me in the studio. And I can jump ahead or jump back whenever I notice that the structure I intended doesn't work, or So sometimes I skip to the very back and I just glue together my episode like that. And sometimes I also have longer passages in there that are written down in order to give good explanation of, for example, what has been said in which context exactly, and that is what I write down precisely. And I can then still speak freely, because this is what I also did when I worked in the radio. You have to kind of force yourself to speak freely. And I can, even if I have written text in front of me, I can still speak freely. And I'm really thankful to my team when they say, "Oh, Anna, that won't work. Please rewrite it, rephrase it. It will be better like that." So those editorial comments are very helpful. And I'm very old school. I like to print out my stuff, because I can work with that better than if I were scrolling, because I can find page 4 very quickly on paper, but not if I'm scrolling in a document. But I don't know what my guests will say. I meet many of them for the first time at the moment we're making the podcast. And this is also a moment I find very exciting. Still, you get the feeling they've been knowing each other for ages, but sometimes we just meet for the first time in the podcast. So this is the case here today. People might think we've been knowing each other for ages, but it's not true. We met just today. Well, I have got a question on filter bubbles. Later we'll continue with the production questions. Well, every podcast has its sources. Every podcast has different ways things differently. Do you think you reinforce filter bubbles? I think that really depends on how people plan their podcast. Of course, you can make a podcast only for a certain bubble, but that wouldn't be exciting from a journalistic point of view. It's really good if you manage to find a format that people connect with, and that connects different people from different walks of life. And we want to bring all the people together who find themselves in the democratic spectrum. So AfD voters would probably not like our podcast. So we did a poll a few years ago. What did you vote in the last elections? And there were 63 AfD voters among 25,000 people, and I was happy about that, because we were able to convert 63 AfD voters, maybe, but. Yeah, on the other hand, you often hear that political podcasts should be neutral, and I think that is a myth. There is no neutral journalism in the sense that everything can be seen from the same perspectives. Journalists are humans too, and they bring their own perspective on the world with them. So neutrality is not what we would strive for. We strive for fairness. We want to put a spotlight on all the relevant aspects of a topic. So we want to know what the different parties' positions are, and so that nothing is missing from the picture. And on the other hand, if you look at political events from your own perspective, we have info parts, and in the end, in the blog, we do a commentary, and this commentary for that transparency is also really important. You know, if you visit my homepage, you can see that I was a member of the SPD for a few years, but I left the party because I didn't find it matched well with my journalistic work. So transparency is very important. You can see where I'm publicly appearing. You know where I'm from, who I am, and what is important to me. And that is much more important for me personally than trying to aim for neutrality that you can't achieve in the end. Well, yeah, neutrality, I don't think that is a goal that can be reached and not a goal you should have. Objectivity is what I try to achieve, and that is my personal goal. But no one is ever purely objective because everyone has their individual perspective on things, and I think you're a lawyer. You've said that often, and for all the topics that have that are about court decisions, for example, you have high expertise. I like that, but a party affiliation would damage your journalistic work. I'm not a member of a party. I could never have been, because since I'm 25, I've always wanted to be a journalist. So you can expect to get opposing views, but when I'm interviewing someone, like, for example, from the SPD, I will take the position of other parties and question them with that. So that is my striving for objectivity, and also to have the facts about the current political debate clear. About filter bubbles, I don't see podcasts reinforcing filter bubbles. I think podcasts are a medium and an opportunity to burst bubbles. I'm used to working for a broad audience with many ages and walks of life, and everyone should feel connected with this neutral, positive, respectful tone. And in the same way, I'm working with my podcasts. We want to reach as many people as possible, and we realize that we tend to reach people who are younger. Yeah, let me check my handwritten notes. It's only 6.1% older than 60. And with my past as a TV presenter, I would expect that those people, that generation would know me and maybe find me. But yeah, it's probably the problem is that they don't even find a podcast. So they can find me on YouTube sometimes. And many of those don't do anything while listening to the podcast, but they just sit down and watch it on YouTube. If that is the way, I also appreciate that. I've been told political podcasts are usually made by men and listened to mainly by men, so I wanted to change that. I'm a woman, and I'm inviting women, whether it be politicians, professors, or whatever. And it turns out we have 51.8% male listeners, which is the majority, but 44.2% are women, which is a lot, especially in comparison to what I was told about political podcasts and how they're consumed. And I have 1.9% of listeners who identify as non-binary, which I appreciate a lot. And in what concerns age, most of my listeners are between 35 and 44. However, you can see some growth there. And to answer your question fully, filter, that guarantees that I'm able to burst filter bubbles and reach more and more people. I would be interested in your numbers if you're ready to share them. No, it's not a secret, of course. It's very similar. It's not easy to find those, to collect this data. Our Spotify demography is very similar to Anna's. And I think that's a lot better than the general trend in podcasting where you have 65 to 70% male listeners. Do you think the popularity of podcasts has something to do with mistrust in classic media or public broadcasting? I see a different aspect there. I think political podcasts are the answer to something I often do. Maybe many of you will also probably. You get lost in scrolling on your phone, and you realize, shouldn't it stop at some point? It's a sort of doom scrolling where you only read bad news, but the whole scrolling aspect, it makes you crazy. And what makes me feel calm is go outside and listen to a podcast and really dive into a topic. And this longing for profound and in-depth information and this overwhelmed feeling. I know that there's a lot of criticism towards public broadcasting, and I think we're given a gift in our country by a diverse media landscape and a trust that, you need to take seriously. So I don't take this challenge you're bringing in with your question. We have a lot of loss of trust in institutions, but not necessarily in free press. Of course, people pick where they inform themselves. Of course, I would prefer people to listen to podcasts. Yeah, I totally agree. I also don't think we have a massive loss of trust, but on the other hand, to make it more positive, podcasts are a huge opportunity to build trust via the emotional cohesion that we've talked about, but also transparency, that we are very open about who we are and what connections we have, and what also plays a role, I would say, is error culture. We always have a section in our podcast where we make transparent that we said something wrong in the last podcast. So we don't repeat the wrong statement, but we correct the facts. And we are often told that this error culture is very much appreciated because it builds trust. And you have to say, we're humans, of course, we make mistakes, and no one likes to admit a mistake, but we realized how important error culture is because we're able to correct ourselves. We take it seriously when we make mistake, and we try to amend them.
I really love that point about a culture of admitting mistakes. And there's also this feedback loop about correcting errors. How is it with you? Do you actually search out opinions on your podcast and social media? How do you stay in connection with your listeners so that it's not a one-way street? How do you get feedback? I do read it. I do get emails about episodes. We have a contact email address for that. And I do read all of that. And just as Ulf said, you will, and I really enjoy this about the weather podcast, you will be made aware of things, but in a very tactful and friendly way if you made a mistake. And there was a listener who told me there was something that annoyed her, but she didn't say that if if I want to use a certain word, if I could use a different one because she didn't like it. But she expressed it in a very friendly way. And it's the same with my friends. My friends tell me, you always say this and that, and could you just not do that? And she did it similar, but very nice and friendly. And obviously, this is helpful for me because I often don't notice. I will try to correct this. This is the very mature way of dealing with this, and not like eat it up, and rather be respectful, correct your mistakes. And if you want to have this very respectful discussion with your partners, you should really welcome this kind of feedback. And social media, our team really looks at all of the feedback that we get. Some of the things that reach me on X, the formerly known as Twitter, I have a hard time dealing with that. This doesn't really reach me, but I try to put this all into context. Just there's a nicer way of reaching your audience, but it's also the connection that you have with your listeners. The voluntary, it's basically the decision of the listener. They voluntarily want to listen to it. You're not forcing them. They don't consume it passively like they would a TV. They really want to listen to you, and that's why even on X, people are friendlier to me at least. Can you also confirm this? I'm also surprised a lot of times how the feedback is very friendly, and we try very hard to make the feedback easy and to give them a comfortable way of giving us feedback. And we really want to hear if what we're saying is correct. We invite feedback. If there's something we should add to what we said, we've created a forum where people can talk about it, and we've already professionalized this. We have moderators, and a few thousand people actually discuss the topic that we've talked about in the podcast. And I find this very valuable because they usually take these topics that we've talked about in the episode and will then go into depth on it. And we can even go further and use what we found there and use it for another episode. And also sometimes people will already say, could you maybe talk about topic XYZ? And people will start to expand on that and do some of the research. And I can really encourage other people to open these feedback channels because it really helps We also have our own Instagram newsroom that also do a little bit of TikTok, but not a lot. I also look at Mastodon. We more or less ignore X, interestingly enough. We have an account, but for us, social media is not as central to our strategy. We really try to get them into our forum because it opens up the space for a better discussion, which is very hard in social media because, yeah, I don't want to say we never answer on Blue Sky, but we actually much rather have them participate in our forum because there is a space for nicer discussions. It's much more in-depth. It's much more positive. So much better connection. How often does that happen, that you pick up topics in the forum that have been suggested? How often do you turn them into episode? That happens quite a lot, actually. I look at it very often. It does happen every now and then that people will suggest it, stuff that we've in our own newsroom have already decided to do. So sometimes it's coincidental, but a lot of times there's also the other way that they suggest topics that we haven't looked at. And for us, this is also interesting to know who would people want to listen to, who should we invite, and we're trying very hard to find women to talk to give them more space. And then someone in the forum will say, look at Professor XYZ, I'm studying with her and she's great, and that we really want to pick that up. How does the newsroom look for you, Anne? Do they approach you with topics, or how does that work? I often come up with the topics myself, but also in coordination with Anne-Marie Schiller. She's the head of my newsroom. We often just tell each other the topics that we're very curious about or that we're interested in, and this is a lot of back and forth. There's a great learning from the first year that we're doing is most of the questions come up right away, and it's an awesome place to be in. We really have a lot of choice and then decide rather late in the game what to do, because we want to be very current, very up to date. So we often decide at the very last minute what to talk about. But our goal still is to reach a certain level of timelessness. We don't want to be old news by the next day. So this is a bit of a gap that we have to bridge. We try to adapt to it. There should be a lot of second and third thought behind the actual topic. But for example, today we were thinking about what we should do next week and who we should ask to participate. What will happen next week in the political space? So we were thinking about Ukraine, and then I saw Wednesday Zelensky had an event happen, and I thought maybe that's a good point. And then we can already say we want to talk about that. So who's gonna be your interview guest? And yeah, clearly, I mean, Zelensky's going to say just for the podcast. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I wanted to understand what would a good set of sanctions look like? What historical experience have we gained over the centuries? If we ramp up the sanction, what does that do? How do the crises evolve? And I wanted to invite Nicole Deitelhoff. She's doing research in conflict and peace. And I want to talk to her on Tuesday. I hope this works out because I haven't got confirmation. And then I want to do a deep dive on the new German foreign policy. So I'm usually probing politicians on daily business and politics. But I hope we can connect these topics in an intelligent way. And I want to keep doing this with the hope that more people are interested. And it's awesome to hear that our chancellor is here on Republica, and maybe he perceives this new tone within political journalism and finds it enjoyable, and maybe that changes something within him. So I'm really looking forward to new episodes. And just to dive deeper into your teams, how big are they? What do they look like? We're 12 to 14 people who work for me, mostly freelancers who also work on other endeavors. Some of them are part-time. We have a diverse team. There's women, there's men. We have someone taking care of social media. There's the production. There are actual journalists. And I thought I left TV behind me, and I thought I could really be done with makeup. But then again, nowadays you do video podcasts, and I still need to do it. Yeah, same for me. I really don't enjoy it. I mean, you're a television professional. I was totally annoyed at how my smile, for example, would look like, or my makeup. I really want to focus on my language, and I know preferences are different, but for me, I would really hate it. I mean, I'm with you, honestly. I mean this seriously. I really hoped that I would have left it behind me, but especially if you have headphones on your ears, and I really think, well, I was really assured that the future is the video podcast. I mean, it doesn't stop anybody from just listening to it. Same as me. I only listen to them. I don't watch them. But it's not my place to prescribe my listeners or viewers how to enjoy the content. And clearly there is a little more effort behind it. If you have to do a video there, it needs to be cut, it needs to be edited after the fact. It's not as easy. And for me, it's harder even because I'm not used to working live. But usually you have 2 or 3 more extra steps in your working process, and that takes time. So we published the audio version at 12 on a Thursday, and then it takes until about 5 p.m. for us to publish the video one. And I already told you, Marie Schiller, our executive producer, she does it full-time, but she also has 2 small kids. And she needs to sort it out with her husband how to get this done. But I'm working on this 3 days a week for podcasts, and for the rest, I produce stuff with my own company, Anvil Media. But obviously, it's a lot more relaxed than what I did in the past. So I really enjoy it, and it's a lot of fun for me. So this is great to hear. How is this for you, Ulf? And for me, my team is about the same size, but it has a little different focus. So me and a colleague do 90% of the research work. We have one person who's doing like a work experience thing, who's helping, but the research is really our thing. We do it ourselves as the hosts. But we have a post-production team of about 4 people who work on getting the episode up onto the network, how to edit it, how to cut it, how to do the newsletter, the social media. And we have a whole marketing team that We have a dedicated extra social media team. That's another 4 people who, all of them full-time? No, some of them are. So the social media people are not, they're part-time. So we're about 11, 12 people. I don't have an idea what the FTE count is, so the full-time equivalent, but yeah, I also forgot that I also have a social media team, and there's the marketing campaign that is done by an external company. For me, I have no idea how to do that, so I don't know how to reach target advertisers, and I would, you need it. This is, you're talking about quality journalism. There are so many loops and so many hoops you have to go through in order to have a polished final product, and that costs money, and that is fine. This is a great profession. I really think this should be normal, great paid work. But in order to keep the content free of charge at the point of consumption, you need to monetize it somehow in a different way. And this is the usual way to do it, and I think it's okay. I'm totally fine with that. If I'm the listener, I'm okay with that. This is how it's done. And I don't think podcast advertisements aren't as annoying. It's not as bad as if you listen to the radio, where I really find it rather annoying. And you're shoveling in your breakfast, and you're already being annoyed by some very intrusive advertisement. And I have a feeling that with podcasts, people are fine with that. They understand there is a newsroom there. They need to be financed. This is real work. People have to live off that. And these are all smart people. They could do something else. So you have to pay them for that. And I also think this is a very important point. We also get a lot of criticism about the advertisement that we publish, especially with the tagline, does that not impede your independence? And I have to say, no, we have a clear separation. There's a Chinese wall there. The newsroom is separate from the marketing. Philip and I, as the research team, have no idea who the advertisers are going to be. And there are bookings for their advertisement slot, and there is a strict separation. This is important to us. We want to be able to confidently claim there is no influence. There is no back and forth between these two sides. And I really want to underline that point that Anna made. If someone wants to do quality journalism these days and don't want to have it financed by large companies, for example, how it is in the modern landscape, you need a great amount of independence, and the money needs to come from somewhere. And for us, that is marketing. This is advertisement. And this is at least the biggest pillar that we stand on. But we also have other newer forms how we monetize. For example, we have a subscription that you can give us a bit of money every month that helps us keep it free for other people. And basically the same as every good rock band, we have concerts, we have live shows where we sell tickets, and that also helps keep the core product free of charge on the internet.
What is the most important pillar for you? I don't know if you have similar pillars. What is the most important pillar for your economical sustainability? Yeah, well, we only do advertisements at the moment, and with producer reads, I don't read those. So I didn't want to criticize that. The second pillar, when I can use that picture, is also live shows. On 11th June, we're here in Berlin at Orania, so if you have a free evening, there's tickets left, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Being live, like here, for example, is really fun and it's rewarding. And in autumn, we'll be in Cologne, Hamburg, and Leipzig. And we'll see how it is and if it works, if people want to see that. But I'm positive, because that's also a completely new development that people, I mean, it's about 2,000 people with you as well that are interested in hearing a live podcast. 10 years ago, people would have asked, what? Isn't a podcast what I listen to when jogging? So I don't think people could have imagined that 10 years ago. But it's a nice thing. You delve into a topic, you get into conversation with other people. All of that is an answer to this over stimulation of Instagram and so on. And it's a nice development because it gives you a fundamental awareness for things that you wouldn't have otherwise in a group. Yeah, I think that's the point, because you usually consume a podcast on your own, and in a live show, you're among other people who enjoy the same podcast. Well, I was wondering why the live audience was so silent, and then I realized, okay, well, it would be weird if people were doing the things they usually do while listening to podcasts, like doing the washing up, but it's so silent here. Do we bore you, or you wanted to add something? Yeah. I like live shows as well because of the feedback channel. We can meet up with people and have a cold one after the show. And it's fascinating to hear the experiences, like, for example, how people found us, what they like, what they don't like. So it's an informal feedback loop. Many people answer our polls, but live you can still get other impressions, and then it's a great opportunity, like you've said, to go there together. Often parents or even grandparents gift tickets to the younger generation. Look, I've got a ticket for this and that podcast. Isn't that what you listen to? I think live tickets are a great Christmas gift for children, for example. And especially in what concerns the age bracket, there's people with silver hair and people who obviously haven't left school yet. So I just panicked when I looked at my watch. I've got one last question I would like to have answered. So back then it was social media, now it's looking differently. What you used to say about social media was that it took down barriers and it gave access and created platforms where there weren't any before. And this is something you also say about podcasts, that it provides a democratic stage. Do you agree? I don't know. Wouldn't that mean... Well, either I didn't understand the question correctly, but you invite people to the podcast that have never been listened to before. I can't say that about my podcast. No, I mean, people who usually don't have a TV show can make a podcast. Yeah, that is definitely true. And that's a great opportunity that people who have something to say can find a way to say that. And they can start out very basic, just make a podcast that a few people will listen to. And if you're lucky, you'll get bigger. If you look at how many niche topics have a podcast and that become really huge because of a podcast, and because there's a niche community that cares about turtles, for example. So, yeah, that might not... Turtle time, yeah. That's a good title. Let's start. Yeah, in my area in Berlin, we actually have turtles in the water that people like. I don't want to do a turtle podcast. Yeah, sorry, I was just in love with this turtle time idea. So I wanted to know from you, do you think? Well, yeah, I think Anna's answer was exhaustive. So let's do the other way around. The thing you actually thought. I asked, do you have the opportunity to invite more women? No, in TV I had that as well, and I did that. Of course, I always invited women first. Well, if you want the foreign minister, you don't really have a choice about the gender, but I can't really answer it for my podcast if those are people I would have invited into my TV show. I don't think it applies to my podcast, but what I can do differently is to get deeper into a topic which you couldn't do on a Sunday evening show. So, and this is something that this medium presents an opportunity for, and this is nice. Yeah, we take a lot of joy in discovering people. If we see women, for example, who are really smart, who do great scientific research, for example, it's really nice to be able to give them a forum. So, to conclude, an easy question: what are your favorite political podcasts? What do you listen to? What we should listen to? What I never listen to is State of the Nation. Yeah, thanks for that. I like to listen to das Politikteil. I like to listen to Machtwechsel. The rest is politics. I listen. Well, I definitely forgot one now. I listen to Apokalypse and Filterkaffee not very often, and I like to listen to Rasen. I love the Deutschlandfunk podcasts. I have the Deutschlandfunk Audiothek app where you can subscribe to podcasts and create your own little curation. So they do a really good job. And as I just said, we're so blessed with so many great offers of political journalism. We're really gifted in our country. There's so much complaints all the time, and you should see the positive aspects. Yeah. It almost sounds like Anna and I agreed on this beforehand, but we haven't. We just happened to listen to the same podcasts. So I wanted to say L'heure du monde. L'heure du monde is a daily podcast from Le Monde, the French newspaper, and it's very interesting to see that they have different nuances. I like this sort of different outlook on things. So it's 6:30 sharp. We're done. I'll be talking to you. I'll continue talking to you after the show. But first of all, I would like to thank you for this great conversation. Thank you, Ulf Buermeyer and Anne Will.